Hey guys, it's Nocturne. Welcome to part 3 of Zelda 2 Redux. And in this part, the main thing we're going to be doing is taking on Death Mountain. And I've said before that this is the hardest part of the game. The main reason for that is it's a large area. There's really no way to heal in between parts. And it's a large maze, so you can get lost. Plus, it's early in the game, so your levels are more than likely going to be low. Attack level 3 is good, but you're going to really want to be attack level 4 to make things easier. The main thing you just need to know about Death Mountain is they start throwing hard enemies at you, so you need to be careful about dodging. You start seeing blue versions of these enemies. Normally in the game, the blue versions of enemies are going to be the hardest. It usually goes orange, red, blue, that sort of thing. And I'm going to be using the heal spell a lot going through here. And as you navigate through, the easiest way is anytime you get to the overworld, either go right or down. Because all that stuff to the left is really going to just lead to nowhere, really. It's fastest to go the way that I'm going. And these are the main enemies that cause a problem. These are Dairas. And they are really incessant with their attacking. The orange ones aren't too bad, but the red ones that actually throw their axes at you are extremely difficult. Those are the ones you're going to have a major problem with. And you got more of these fish enemies here. They're just a big pain in the ass. Although in this version they don't take away your experience points like they do in the original game. And you'll see there's a couple of red pots for magic. And one thing you can do is while you're healing your magic from the red pot, cast a spell and it won't cost as much. And here's the first time you run into one of these red guys. And unfortunately with the jump spell on, it really throws off my rhythm for attacking them. Because really you want to handle them like you would handle an iron knuckle enemy. You're going to jump and hit the top of their head as you're coming down. And since you jump higher with the jump spell, that usually messes my rhythm up for it. And another thing is, you're gonna get a skill after this, the down stab, where you can just bounce on enemies' heads, but you're not gonna have that at this part of the game. So that's another thing that makes things difficult. These orange ones, you're just gonna want to duck and hit them. Just go in, duck and hit like that in between their attacks. And there, now that you're attack level 4, the orange Dairas will die in 3 hits and the red ones will die in 4. So it'll just make things go that much quicker. And you can't skip Death Mountain either. You have to go through it in order to progress in the game, because the item you get after you come here is the item that actually gives you access to shortcuts to get from the start of the game to where you need to go in case you die. But as you can see, it's progressing fine. It's just more of these guys. And luckily you get the heal spell before this. I couldn't imagine how much of a pain in the ass this would be if you didn't have the heal spell beforehand. And plus, in the Redux version, enemies drop point bags and magic jars much more frequently than they do in the regular game. And there, that red magic jar there lets you know that you're at the end. But you just go through here, because there's an item that you need. The item that you need is in this cave right here, and it's heavily guarded. You've got lots of Dairas here, red and orange. And other enemies too, but not as bad as the Dairas are. Yep, and this cave is a dead end, but the item you need is at the end of it. And the Dairas stay dead when you kill them in this version, so you don't have to worry about that. Just go down here. If you keep going to the right, that's a dead end that doesn't lead anywhere. As you can see now, since I'm getting close to the end, I start throwing the shield spell on. And boosting my magic so that heal spell costs less. Now you just want to be careful. I pull back after each jump so I don't overshoot it. That little spiky guy, you can't handle that yet. You have to wait until you get the down thrust in order to damage it, because it's way too low. You can't even hit it when you're ducking. And this should be the last corridor right here. And luckily you dropped a red magic jar, so I could restore health. And just throw the shield spell on, because I know this is the end. And like that, sometimes they'll throw 2 axes in a row, and it really messes you up. And there's the hammer. You need that in order to break boulders. And you saw there was a boulder right on the outside of this area on the overworld. And this part of the overworld is interesting. I'll get to that when we exit the cave. Which you just have to go through this part again. There's no quick exits in a lot of these places. Once you get to the end, you have to walk your way back out. But mostly the major enemies will be dead. The only things that respawn are like the guys that crawl on the ground, the bats, and other stuff like that. If you kept going to the left down there, there'd be another red magic jar to refill your magic all the way. But it's guarded by a few red Dairas. So you see the Dairas are dead, it's just the bats that are respawn. Okay, so you hit that, fall down, and that's another magic container to give you more magic. Now, the magic containers seem like they're optional, but they're really not. You have to get all of them. And you have to get the first 3 in order to get the last one. Now, this area of the overworld, people say that it's supposed to be like where The Legend of Zelda 1 took place, and it's kind of like that. You went through Spectacle Rock in order to get through the hammer. There's a graveyard over on the left. There's the big forest over on the left as well. So it kind of fits. And then in order to leave the area, you could quick save, or you can keep going. Once you have the hammer, you have the hammer. There's nothing you can do that will make you not have it anymore, except like deleting your save or something like that. Or forgetting to save, that could happen too. But if you quick save and start back at the beginning of the game, once you have the hammer, there'll be boulders that you can break through in order to get back to where you need to go faster. And that's the main purpose for it, breaking boulders and making shortcuts. And you just gotta cross one of these bridges again to get to the next major area of the game. And more bubbles. Bubbles, and you gotta deal with one of these guys, so it's a little tricky. Now, the Redux version makes this game easier, but it doesn't make it completely easy. It's not a cakewalk. It's still pretty tough in some places. Now, once you come to here, if you go down to this area, you get an extra life. The way extra lives work in the Redux version of this game is it sets a event flag. Basically, you always have that extra life, even if you turn the game off and come back once you save. So every extra life you get, it stays there. So if you get a game over, instead of starting with 3 lives, you'll start with however many extra lives you got. And so once you come through here, this is back where the Swamp Palace is. You can get into this cave here, since you have the hammer with the boulder in front of it. And at the end of this, I think, is a point bag. And it can never be too good. Nope, it's a heart container. Never mind. So I just wasted that heal spell, but that's okay. And then you just come back around. Now, there's a town you can visit, but it's best to go do these sealed up caves first, because one of them has an item that you need in order to get the spell for that town. So you just come through here, back where the swamp was, and I'm heading back towards where we first used the jump spell. Just lure them in so I don't have to fight. And then we gotta trudge through the swamp again. And as you can see, I'm running pretty low on magic, but we'll be getting to a town soon. I believe that laying out in the overworld there's 4 extra lives. So your total, if you get all of them, for lives you're gonna have, will be like around 6. Which is better than 2, the 2 that you start with. Although I believe 0 counts in this game, so it's really 7. That's one thing to always check when you're playing a game, to see if they count 0 as another life, or once it hits 0, it's game over. Because each game is different. Yep, just 3 hits for that one. I'm throwing my shield spell on so I don't have to go through it again. And yep, 4. And he drops a 200 point bag sometimes. And there's another one. Yeah, so since this thing is a quest item that you need, it's pretty heavily protected. And now that I leveled up my defense, I got full health. And that's the Sacred Water. You need that to get the spell in the next town we're going to. If you don't get that, you're not going to get the spell, and it's a spell that you need to progress. It's not an optional one. So far, none of the spells have really been optional. Well, I mean, technically the life spell is. You don't need it to progress, but you need it to get through the game. Well, I needed to get through the game. I can't vouch for everybody. You know, once all that's done, we don't need to come through this area of Hyrule again. We've pretty much cleaned it out of everything. And now we just head through to this town here. This is Mido. And there's a couple things you can get in here. One is the spell that needs the Sacred Water, and you can get the down stab here, so you'll finally be able to have it. So you can go through, heal your health and magic. And this church right here, use the jump spell to get up to the top. And in here is where you'll learn the down stab. And just talk to that guy, and he teaches it to you. And you don't have to do anything special, you just have it. All you have to do when you jump is press down, and he does it automatically. And as long as you hold down, he keeps doing it. If you hit an enemy the right way, you can even bounce on them multiple times in one shot. So there's the person that heals your magic. And that's the person who needs the sacred water. There's a lot of stuff in this Zelda game that doesn't show up in other ones. Like the down thrust, he doesn't really use that in other Zelda games because other Zelda games are mostly 2D. Well, the 3D ones he uses it. This spell right here, you can turn into a fairy, and it is a very good spell to know, because not only do you turn into a small target that can fly around, you can also use it to fly through doors and dodge enemies with. But once you turn into a fairy, you can't turn back until you leave the current screen you're on. So sometimes they'll put up walls of blocks in order to prevent you from cheating over something. Okay, once you're done with that, you're going to head on down to the graveyard there. That one grave sticking out in the middle, that's called King's Tomb. And it's an important landmark because further down from there, there's a hole you can drop into that's hidden. And if you get into a fight in the graveyard, you're going to fight those enemies that are called Moas. So there's the graveyard. You go down here. And this is where you need the fairy spell in order to progress. And there you go. You just turn into a fairy, fly over, and that's it. And once you get through here, it's the only way to get to the Island Palace, which is the third palace of the game. And there you see you can bounce off their heads multiple times with the down thrust. And there it is. So that's palace number 3. We're going to be taking that on in the next part. And I hope you enjoyed. Have a good night. Oh, and this is where sometimes when you hit the statue, instead of getting a red pot, you get a red knight. So just kill it, and that's it. Have a good evening.